Hello everybody, this is Dr. Jeff Parker with Marriage Matters. Now let me tell you, this is a short video series, some simple tools that you can incorporate into your marriage, hopefully that may help you. We have put these on Facebook, on my Facebook page. We've also now put these on YouTube. So I encourage you to go to that, Marriage Matters, Dr. Jeff Parker. Go to YouTube, and if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and then share that with somebody who you feel like may be encouraged by this. Marriage Matters, this video series, just simple tools that I believe can make a difference. Now, in this second session, we're going to be dealing with a problem that often comes up. I'm often asked about it, and that is the area of communication. In other words, how do couples communicate? More particularly, how do they work through and resolve conflict that will sometimes come up? Now, the tragedy of most people when they have problems in relationships and in their marriage is they are simply a mirror of what they grew up in. In other words, a lot of times what happens is if you and I grew up in a home with little intimacy, where problems usually came to physical altercations or verbal abuse or conflict resolutions resulted in a complete meltdown of your parents, and you've watched that in those formative years, chances are you may be doing the same thing right now in your marriage. And listen to this, if you're a parent, even with your children. Now, so what I encourage couples to do is sit down. I'm talking about individually. If you're a wife watching this, you would sit down and you would just take an honest inventory, just kind of reflect back over your parents, how they communicated and how they resolved conflict. Because a lot of times you may recognize some things in your own life. Now let me say this, you can never, remember, you cannot change what you don't recognize. So that's why I try to get couples to write it down, because a lot of times you write something down, you begin to recognize a problem, it's only then that you can change it. Now, I said last week, in fact, I put this on Facebook, and it got a lot of response. I said, never ignore a reoccurring theme or topic in arguing. In other words, what you find a lot of times in marriage counseling, you'll find that couples and their arguments seem to be centered around certain themes or topics. In other words, the same topics, same subjects, they keep coming up. And when you're counseling a couple like that, you're hearing it, but you realize they're not. And that's important. A lot of times I'll look at a man and say, I'll just stop and say, what did he say? And, or what did she say? And he'll look at me and he'll go, well, she said, and he'll start, no, tell me what she said. And he'll try to say what she said, and all of a sudden I'll catch a glimpse of her. Her eyes are getting big, she's turning red, and finally she'll explode and say, I didn't say that. Or listen to this, I didn't mean that. Now, what I've discovered is a lot of times in marriage counseling, a simple tool. In fact, when I sit down with a couple, I sit down with an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. And as they're talking, I just sit there. They think I'm doodling, but every once in a while I'll write down something, I'll turn around, let them see it, and then I'll go back to writing again. Most of the time, couples will look and they'll say at the end of a session, can I have that? Can we take that with us? But I've discovered something. A lot of times what's good in conflict resolution and even trying to solve a problem or a reoccurring theme is to get the people simply to write it down. You see, a lot of times when we write something down, as we look at it written down, we begin to recognize that it may be an impossibility, or it may be something that we realize that we've exaggerated, or something that we realize, hey, we can compromise and get through this problem. You know, a lot of times in communication, Dobson makes this statement. James Dobson said when people are coming together, when they're marrying, he said it's like two big mighty rivers coming together. And when they come together, they're just exploding and the water is just churning and rolling. He said, but the farther down you go, the smoother it gets. And boy, that's so true. Now, let me give you an example out of my own life, very personal. When my wife and I married, we weren't long married before we realized we had a problem, and it wasn't a little problem. The problem centered around housework, the keeping of our home. So, and let me tell you how it happened. We're living in a single wide trailer. We're up in Mississippi State, both of us college students. One day I've got something I need to go to, class or whatever, and I need it to look good. So I walk in and I'm holding my shirt, and I asked her if she would iron the shirt. Well, she looked at me like she didn't even understand what I was talking about. She said these words. She said, look, I'll never forget it. She said, go in there, throw it in the dryer, get it hot, let it fluff up, and hang it on a hanger. Well, I looked at her, and she finally just said, here, let me do it. I'll do it. So she goes in there, throws it in there with the rest of the clothes that have been sitting in the dryer, cuts it on, stands in there for a few minutes, waits on it to get hot, and then she takes it out, shakes it, and hangs it on a hanger. She comes back in there with a big bundle of the hot clothes that were in the dryer besides my shirt, throws them on this old green vinyl couch we had, and then commences to laying down in the middle of these warm clothes, and then says, hey, come over here and lay down with me. It is so nice. I guess it was kind of cold in our trailer anyway, so it felt good to her. Now, let me say this. That may seem little, but one of the 5 basic needs, and we'll talk about this in another session, one of the 5 basic needs of a man is domestic support. You see, I had grown up, now here's the problem, I want you to listen. I had grown up in a home where my mom was OCD. She was obsessive compulsive. Our home looked like a hotel. It was immaculate. The only problem was it was a hotel, it was a house, but it was not a home. My mom had good intentions and she meant well, but she didn't understand just the warmth of a home. My wife, Sheila, she grew up in what I would call hoarder's heaven. In other words, in her house, it was just absolute, complete chaos. There were stacks of magazines, stacks of newspapers. My mother-in-law was somewhat of a hoarder. She just kept everything. I mean, if you wanted to eat at a table, you had to clean the table off in order to eat. There was stuff everywhere. Now, we grew up polar opposites. So now all of a sudden you bring the 2 of us together and we're trying to navigate how to keep a home, and we're coming from 2 different extremes. Now let me tell you the mistake. The mistake was this. I did not attack the problem, I attacked her. It wasn't long before I looked at her and said, you'll never learn. You're just messy. You were just raised that way. Men just unleashing on her. One day I couldn't find her and we had an argument, and I went back and there she was sitting in her bedroom, and she was on her, sitting down on the floor, and she was crying. In that moment, God tapped me on the shoulder and reminded me, you and her are devouring each other. You see, the problem was not the person. Now, I want you to listen closely. The reason so many couples can't navigate conflict and find resolution, they get their eyes off the problem and they begin to look at the person and they begin to attack that person, and thereby they are destabilizing their marriage. Listen, Sheila and I were opposites, that's right, but God brought us together. You know, Rick Warren makes this statement. He said, God is not trying to make you happy as much as he's trying to make you holy. God sometimes brings a person into your life who is the opposite. See them as a tool in the hand of a sovereign God by which God is reshaping your personality. My personality was as OCD as my mom, and it was not good. God brought Sheila into my life to bring me to a point that I would learn to relax, that I would learn to live and enjoy my home and not merely have a house that looked like a hotel. God brought me into her life to bring some sense of order. Now that's critical. You see, the danger is a lot of times in communication, we begin to attack the person and we completely lose sight of the problem. Now, let me give a couple of things here. Number one, let me tell you, when you've got conflict in your marriage, don't take it on social media. Don't take it to your in-laws. Listen, when you get over it, your in-laws will still be mad about it. So don't take things to your in-laws. Don't take things to your parents. Don't take things to your parents. Don't carry stuff to peripheral people. But the big thing is don't make it public. Now let me review real quick. I kind of wrote them down over here. Number one, learn to state the problem. If you have to, write it down. Second, don't get sidetracked into attacking the person. Keep your focus on the problem. Third, if it's third, I can't remember. Don't communicate and take that conflict and carry it outside the circle of your marriage. If you do, it just will wreak havoc. Finally, let me encourage you, get you a life coach. If you're having a problem in an area, let's say house, you're having problems in an area of your marriage, a lot of times you can find a voice of truth, a coach, somebody that can kind of help you, somebody that's been married a long time may be able to give you some advice. Well, God bless you. I hope this is helping. I want all of you to know that I love you. I'm praying for you. And as I said last week, except the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain that build it. Psalm 127:1. Jesus Christ loves you. He wants your marriage to work. He wants you to make it. You take care. You have a great day. God bless you. Bye-bye.